Alex Morono's career has been a little bit like Seymour Skinner's back.
Mother always said a curvy spine is the devil's roller coaster.
Because if you look at it, it's absolutely insane. He's taking on a guy with an equally impressive, or should I say weird run in mixed martial arts. I'm talking about, hey Mickey, it's Mickey Gall. And for Mickey Gall, he's a guy that comes into the UFC, he's 1-0. He debuts in 2015, gets a win. It's on Looking for a Fight. He ends up in the UFC. You're fighting the Sage Northcutts, the CM Punks, and then the George Sullivans of the world.
Don't forget about Mike Jackson, Craig.
And Mike Jackson. So for Gall, it's been such a weird, wild, rocky ride. You look at his losses. I mean, Diego Sanchez, Mike Perry, you know, the guy that won in bare knuckle, but barely by split decision. And then he goes out and fights Jordan Williams last time out. He's a decent-sized underdog in the same realm as he will be coming up this weekend. And it's a totally new Mickey Gall. And that's where I have to really stop, hold the phone. Let's talk a little bit about Gall. Because this is a guy that had a great jiu-jitsu pedigree. Very big for the division. He's one of the bigger fighters you're going to find at 170. Almost like a Michael Chiesa type of frame on him. And for Gall, he was always known as a guy that's going to try and wrap you up, take you down, and submit you. His last fight, he comes out, and the other thing I should say, he's always been a guy to cross-train. He was always out of New Jersey. But then he started to filter in. He started to move west. He went to California. He worked out with Joe Schilling. He had those kickboxing influences. And then you'd watch his fights and you'd go, well, okay, but where is this paying dividends? Because striking defense isn't there. Striking offense isn't there. All you have is your grappling abilities. But Gall in his last fight, if you can believe it, had Matt Brown, who's supposed to be on this card, taking on Bryan Barberena, but COVID forced Brown out. He had Matt Brown in his corner, and he trained with the Immortal extensively for that fight. First little bit of an exchange that Gall throws, short right hook in tight, he drops Jordan Williams. Now, Jordan Williams doesn't have the greatest chin. We've seen this. Nasruddin Imavov definitely checked it. But Jordan Williams knocked out Gregory Rodriguez, so he has to be good at something, right? So when I look at Gall, his striking was great in his last fight. He was able to tee off a couple of different times because you're always worried about keeping your hands a little bit lower for the threat of the takedown. He drops Jordan Williams. He ends up getting on his back. He gets the rear naked finish as Williams is trying to get back up to his feet. Awesome win for Mickey Gall. I don't know whose Cheerios Mickey Gall pissed in to get Alex Morono, but when we're talking about a guy who has that Seymour Skinner background, Alex Morono, second-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, black belt in Taekwondo, trains at Gracie Baja Woodlands, but also Fortis MMA, has Saif Saud in his corner, but also cornered Ricky Tercios when he won the Ultimate Fighter, the latest season. Matt, I've said a lot about Mickey Gall. I've said a little bit about Alex Morono. The reason why I throw in the Devil's Roller Coaster is because this guy is 9-4 with 1 no contest in his UFC run. He's won bonuses. He's had Fight of the Nights. He's had Performance of the Nights.
Why are you yelling at me?
But the 5-on in for Alex Morono, and this is why it really comes wooden roller coaster on the beach full circle.
Chaos Williams, the scariest man in the division.
Fights Chaos Williams, didn't look good, get knocked out quickly. Fights Reese McKee, looks amazing. Fights Anthony Pettis, looks bad. Beats Cowboy Cerrone, beat him bad. Won a performance bonus for that. And then went out and had a very competitive and overwhelming fight over David Zavada where he wins. Listen, the judges scored it 3 times 30-27. Big win for Morono. But when I look at this fight, Matt, like, what did Mickey Gall do to get this?
Okay, I agree with everything you said. But let's not act like beating the corpse of Cowboy Cerrone's that big of a deal anymore, okay? Like, that hasn't been important to me since the early half of 2017. And I love Cowboy Cerrone. This is the thing. If anyone tells you they know what version of Mickey Gall is going to show up on Saturday, tell them to get out of town and then out of the next one and the next one. Because there's just so many question marks around him. You got to remember, the UFC around like UFC 200, it was a very strange time. Strict drug testing had just been implemented about 10 months previously. They were about to get sold to a massive billion-dollar company, and they were trying to figure out how do we either build prospects, build stars, or figure out who's going to kind of lead us into this next generation. So they were kind of experimenting. They were doing the Contender Series stuff. They were building the Contender Series stuff. They were doing the Dana White looking for a fight and whatnot, which is what produced Mickey Gall and Sage Northcutt. But that's where the whole CM Punk thing came into play. And that was a really weird time because anybody who fought a professional wrestler in their MMA career, it's a really hard thing to then try to break that down and add that into the equation. So he just had a really weird bring up through the sport. And even the Sage Northcutt win. Like, I probably think higher of Sage Northcutt than I should, and I still don't think that win means anything to me. Like with Sage, he left the UFC, which was weird because I felt like he was just starting to find his footing. He gets fed to a monster and won championship, and we haven't seen him since because he was injured so badly in that fight. So with Gall, I would say his best win is Jordan Williams, without a doubt. Like no one's gonna argue, I don't think.
The Salim Touahri fight, if you want to go back and watch it, don't. It's awful.
And George Sullivan wasn't really a UFC caliber guy either. I know he had a few stints or he had a few fights in the UFC, but he was never really a top tier guy either. So I still look at Gall as basically just a jiu-jitsu guy who throws really heavy on the feet, because that's what I do think Gall's kind of resorted to. He's figured out, okay, my wrestling might not be top tier, although my jiu-jitsu is. If I just throw really hard, it's either going to force my opponent to shoot bad takedowns on me, which is going to open up defensive submissions, open up scrambles, which of course Mickey Gall's going to be able to out-scramble most guys in this division. But I do worry about him when he does fight any guy in the feet who has A, good wrestling defense, and B, a good level of output, because Diego Sanchez didn't beat him by just hitting him with a big shot and putting him down. He beat him by putting a pace on Gall that Gall just couldn't keep up with, and that's the thing I always go back to. It's funny that you bring it up right to start this video. You say, okay, Gall's one of the biggest welterweights in the division, which he is, but there was this whole conversation before the Sanchez fight of, hey, I might move down to lightweight. Like, think how big I'd be at lightweight if you think I'm big at welterweight. That's a really weird thing to say when in your next performance you have difficulty cutting the weight and then your cardio looks really bad against Sanchez. And then same thing against Mike Perry. Perry is known for being a big brawler on the feet. Mike Perry looked like Canelo Alvarez against Mickey Gall. He's popping the jab. He's striking at range. He's defending takedowns.
Looked like a guy that would eventually fight Michael Seals in a triangle.
Exactly. Like, he had a bright future ahead of him, and you knew that based off that performance. But the things I worry about is that, okay, Gall is a good grappler when he has top position, but Mike Perry was able to hold him down and stay in his full guard and not really be that worried about any submissions off the back of Gall. So in this matchup,
this is a guy who was cornered by his girlfriend and walked out to Beyonce's Halo for that fight.
Yeah, and he was still able to beat the brakes off Mickey Gall. So when I think about this matchup, does Alex Morono hit as hard as Mike Perry? Not at all. But are their games kind of similar after that? Well, yeah, a little bit. Like, Morono can strike from the outside. He can use volume, things that have worked against Mickey Gall in the past. He's got good wrestling defense. He's got great jiu-jitsu of his own, so I don't think it's a case of, oh, if Gall gets him down one time, it's over. I just don't really know where Gall has any massive strengths when you base him against Alex Morono, because the thing about Morono, you kind of have to be a specialist to beat him. You need absurd punching power. You need absurd striking speed. You kind of need to be special in one aspect of your game to get a win over him, and I don't know if Gall is special in any one area.
There's one thing that Gall does very well that if he's able to do it and implement it early can cause Alex Morono giant problems. You go back to the Pettis fight. What did Pettis do? He threw a little bit of wild stuff. He threw a lot of output. He marched Alex Morono down. Morono's a guy, he can switch stances, he can throw good volume, but when he's backed up, he's not very good. And there's very few fighters that are good backing up. Mickey Gall's not a guy that's very good backing up, but Morono isn't that great. You mentioned it early. If you can fake him out with the hands a little bit, get him worried about the takedown, and then start to throw, you've seen the power out of Gall. Again, Jordan Williams doesn't have a hell of a chin. Look at his fight against Kazula Vargas years ago. But Mickey Gall definitely has gained in his boxing abilities. And if he was able to throw a little bit of a leg kick, you never know. Things could progress. He's still almost 30 at this point. 10 pro fights. But again, he came in with 1. He beat Ron Templeton. That sounds like the name of a mouse in a children's book. So when I look at Templeton, and when I look at the odds for this one, Alex Morono open to -270s, -232 favored on best fight odds. For Mickey Gall, open to +230s, +185. We haven't looked at the Tapology votes, so they are a surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to set the over-under at 70% Morono.
I think it's over.
Yeah, it's over. 1,221 total votes, 86% Morono, 64% by decision, 26% have him to win by knockout. For the 14% that have Gall, 46% have him to win by submission. I started off the video asking whose Cheerios did Mickey Gall piss in, but eventually you got to fight guys like Alex Morono. You've already fought Diego Sanchez. You beat Jordan Williams, who's fought Nasruddin Imavov, Gregory Rodriguez to get into the UFC. He fought on Contender Series 3 different times. So listen, stuff's got to happen. But for me, I like Morono with the volume. I like him with the stance switches. I think he's just more of a striker than Gall is. I definitely worry about him in some of the in-betweens. Mickey Gall is a great guy at just sinking in his submissions. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. You know that by now. But I do like Morono for the complete package, but I would still stay away from this fight, to be honest.
I don't know why I paused right there. Okay, this is the thing. I agree that Alex Morono does have trouble backing out, but the problem is, let's say both these guys have that march forward kind of a mindset. At a certain point, Mickey Gall's gas tank is going to run out a lot faster than Alex Morono's. And I'm almost certain of that. I've seen Morono throw hundreds of strikes in his MMA fights and not get tired by the third round. No, yes, his pace and technique does get a little sloppy in the third round, but for the most part, that's only after he's thrown an insane amount of strikes. Whereas with Gall, I can trust him to stay technical and stay powerful for at least a round, but I do worry about him in that second and third round as the fight continues. And Morono's not the type of guy you want to be tired in a cage with, so no, I do agree with you. I like Alex Morono.
If you want the blueprint for Morono in this fight, go watch his fight with Max Griffin. If you want the blueprint for Mickey Gall, just watch his last fight. I mean, you can go back through, you can have some fun. You can watch the George Sullivan fight or the Salim Tuari fight, but you're probably not going to want to.
I just really don't want Mickey Gall to win this fight and then fight Chaos Williams, because I would be seriously scared for his health at that point. Like, this is what I'm thinking about. Yeah, we're getting to the point where, like, okay, if Mickey Gall wins this fight, it could be the worst thing for his career, because if you beat Alex Morono, like, then you're going to be fighting, like, the types of guys that your new mentor should be fighting. Like, you're going to be fighting the type of guys that they were going to give to Matt Brown. Now they're going to be given to Mickey Gall. And I don't know if Gall's ready for some of those matchups. Like, I don't think he's ready for guys like Tim Means. I don't think he's ready for those, like, borderline top 15 guys who can defend takedowns, who are really well-rounded. So this is just odd matchmaking. Like, you did set it up in the perfect way.
Matt, both of us going with the Devil's Roller Coaster, Alex Morono to get the win. Let us know down below. You going with Team New Jersey, Team Gall, or you going with Texas Zone, Morono? H-Town Zone. He's like, what's his name? Tim Williams.
What?
Magnolia City.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
big time
German
fight
citizen.
coming up this weekend that you're not going to want to miss. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say.
Let's get into it.